Hello, thanks for joining me today and your interest in the future of Newport. My name is Chris Hopkins and I'm on the planning team helping the city update the Comprehensive Plan 2020, and I am presenting goal number 5, sustainable environment. Sustainable environment means that Newport values the numerous contributions natural resources make to human well-being and recognizes the importance of protecting and enhancing the natural environment. We will conserve and manage our natural resources in a sustainable manner to ensure their long-term health. When thinking about this overall objective or this overall goal, we will achieve a sustainable environment by focusing on these 5 core objectives. Protecting and enhancing natural resources, including the Ohio and Licking rivers, the hillsides, and the urban tree canopy that are currently found in the city. Encouraging smart consumption, promoting recycling and composting. Properly managing the stormwater runoff that occurs through use of both gray and green infrastructure. Encouraging the use of alternative and renewable energy systems, both for existing and new projects. And ensuring that new development is designed in ways that respect and actually design into them the natural features such as mature trees, hillsides, and scenic views. Over the course of the last few months, we have heard from a number of residents that Newport's natural environment is one of its key assets. And primary in that regard are the Ohio River and the Licking River. Newport is blessed to have both of these riverfront areas, each with its own character and development potential, or preservation potential, I should say. The river frontage is one of the most often mentioned of Newport's most important natural assets. And in discussing and building consensus around how to develop the river frontage is one of the high priorities of this planning process. And in doing so, moving forward, we want to celebrate, preserve, and maintain the city's natural resources and the scenic environment. So the kinds of natural environment assets that are noted within the city is that the neighborhoods throughout the city have both beautiful street trees, there are parks, there are other undeveloped natural areas that really provide some character to the various neighborhoods. Mature trees, they complement Newport's historic architecture, they add character to the neighborhoods and help reduce the heat island and the city's carbon footprint. The other well-known asset is the hillside that rises up in the southern part of the city. This gradually increasing slope up from both the Ohio River and the Licking River provide amazing views of downtown Cincinnati as well as the 2 rivers. However, there are some current conditions and trends that we looked at and we must recognize, and they influence how we plan for the future. And some of those are highlighted in the next few slides. First and foremost is flooding and the state of the hillsides. So it's well known both the Ohio and Licking rivers have had flood issues. With Newport's location right where the 2 rivers meet, it's vulnerable to conditions that are outside of the city limits and therefore outside of the city's control. But one way to deal with that, the city has installed levees to protect the low-lying areas against flooding. Yet this substantial infrastructure creates both a physical and a visual barrier to the riverfronts. Some of the hillsides, too, are vulnerable to slippage and really should not be developed. For example, we know Newport is largely built out, and what remains of the vacant, undeveloped land, the majority of it is within steep hillsides, much of which should not be built on. And the comments that we've heard so far show that there is great concern for future slippages if the hillsides are not protected. Also related to the environment is the stormwater management. And what that means is when it rains, where does that stormwater go? Stormwater drains, as it drains into the rivers, it washes away sediment and pollutants, and therefore proper drainage is very important thinking about Newport's future. The sanitary sewer lines also need to be improved so that the backups and overflows do not discharge or dump effluent into the river. So this is a major concern. We talked earlier about the urban tree canopy, but when we look throughout the city, as you can see on this map in the on the slide, which identifies in the green the areas of the city that have urban tree or that have trees. We know that some neighborhoods have very few trees, like in the west side, very few street trees. The backyards are small, very few trees in the backyard. And then when the east side has more, primarily street trees, but then when you look at the south side with the prevalence of the hills, there's much more green area. Trees are very beneficial to the city. They provide shade and places for people to gather and rest. They help clean the air, reduce the carbon footprint, minimize flooding, and help stabilize the hillside. So the trees, the condition of the trees is very important. Other areas for improvement that we have heard from participants in the online survey is that 85% of the respondents feel that the riverfront amenities are a priority, in that neighborhood parks and recreation are also a high priority, and both of these relate to the condition of the natural environment. So that's very important to keep that in mind as we think about what sort of development should be occurring, what sort of preservation efforts need to be made. When we think about place-based areas, some of the places within the city that we want to make sure are addressed in this comprehensive plan update are the rivers and access to the rivers, the greenways and trails, and forested hillsides. So that's the short presentation on our findings and work to date on preserving and creating a sustainable environment for Newport. Now we want to hear from you. We want to know, what do you think, or what do you see are the most important natural resources that should be protected in Newport? And what do you think Newport can do or should do to conserve and manage these natural resources? And then finally, did we miss anything? Is there anything else you would want us to know related to natural resources and sustainable environment? So with that, I invite you to take a few minutes and go back to the main page for goal number 5. And there is a tab for a survey that you can click on and complete and fill out your responses to these 3 questions. And also there's a link if you'd like to download this presentation for viewing at a later date. Again, thanks for joining us, and I invite you to participate. Thanks.